is to show you what a good lab book is going to look like for this lab. So first of all, let's see where we would find that. This is the syllabus page, and you'll find about halfway down here the lab book requirements. I'm going to go through each of these and make sure that you understand. Now the lab book itself you'll also find here on the side. It'll be under lab manual, and you can download this as a PDF file, and that's how you can print out the data sheets that you'll need for your lab notebook. Alright, so let's go through and check out the syllabus here and see what's necessary for this lab notebook. So first of all, let's take a look at what an acceptable lab notebook looks like. And we've got acceptable versions up the top here. We've got the spiral bound. These happen to be college ruled, but they don't have to be, I guess. They could just be blank pages if you want them to be. But I think the college rule ones are probably the best ones, and they have to be bound with a spiral part down the side here. Or you could use your standard composition book. This one happens to be college ruled. Or this graph paper notebook, which has the graph paper down here as well. So either one, any of those three would be fine, acceptable as a lab notebook. What wouldn't be acceptable? Or 3-ring binder, that would be unacceptable. Also, loose sheets of paper are not acceptable either. Alright, so let's go back to where we were here. And you can see these are the different requirements that I want you to make sure that you will abide by when selecting a lab book and then setting it out. So down the bottom here of the syllabus, I've got an example of a good lab book attached, and here it is as well. You can see that this student definitely has an acceptable lab notebook. They've chosen a graphing type one, that's fine. As I said, other ones are going to be quite acceptable. If it has a date, a title, and a summary here. Now the summary is going to vary depending on your instructor, what they require. You're going to have to put something here. In this case, the student has filled out a procedure and then written a little bit of a blurb about the freezing point depression constant. So that was obviously acceptable for this student's instructor. Your instructor might want something different than that. It could just be a summary, it could be a procedure, it could be both. You'll have to talk to your instructor about that. So the student definitely has a summary there and a date and a title. That's good. I'll put this over here. The other thing you're going to have to do is paste, tape, or glue, or staple even these data sheets into your lab book. Now these come directly out of the lab manual, and you can see that the student has, it looks like they've pasted this in. Pasting or taping, I think, is going to be preferable. If you don't have access to a printer, then you can always put this in by hand. Just write it in your own handwriting. That would be fine as well. So this student has definitely included their data pages, so they have met that requirement. The other thing, not all labs will need calculations, but for the ones that do, they need to be set out in a specific form, and that is number, unit, and description in parentheses. And you can see that that's what that student has done here. They've got a number, a unit, and then a description in parentheses. They've also included something else here. That's probably superfluous. But the requirement is number, unit, and description. The reason for this is because when you come back and look at this lab, when you're studying for the lab practical final, then you need to know where these numbers came from. And if you don't know where they came from, because you won't remember in however many weeks it is until the final, I can guarantee that. So that's why you have to keep a good record. Make sure you put some sort of reference here in this description, in this form of description, as to where these numbers came from. So you've got number, unit, and then description in parentheses. And you can see the student has abided by that throughout all of these calculations that you see here. So I like that, so that one gets a check mark as well. And finally, you can see that the student has signed across the lab book with their name, and they've signed across their work as well. They haven't just put a signature up in the corner, a signature down the bottom here. They've signed across their work here. Also, they've signed in a way that it can't be erased, and that's important to me as well. Alright, so that requirement has been met too. So the student has met all these different requirements for their lab notebook, and I would want you to do the same.